In the last video, we got all of our required permissions in the manifest, and we verified our Google Play Services version. And now in this one, we need to verify permissions once again explicitly, but actually in map activity itself. And then we're going to set up our map. So I'm going to create a new method down here, and this is what we're going to use to explicitly check the permissions. So I'll call it private void get location permission. And this is what's going to actually send the permission request. So we need to create a string array of the permissions that we want. So permissions equals manifest dot permission, and the first one is access. We can do access find location, and the second one can be manifest dot permission, and then access course location for our second one there, and then that should be all we need. So these we need to, after I think it was Android Marshmallow, you always need to explicitly check certain permissions. You don't need to check like internet or anything, but access find location, access course location, you need to explicitly check. So if our context compat dot check self permission, and then we pass the context get application context and manifest permission access find. You know what? I should make a global variable to make this faster. Let's go private static final string. Or I guess we have to do them individually. So I'll do string find location, and then just say manifest permission access find location, and then private static final string course location. That way I only have to type this out once. So manifest permission access course location, and then so this one I'll just change to find location. So access the find location. So if that equals package manager dot access granted, package manager permission granted, then we know that we're good and the permission has been granted. But we have more than one permission to check, so we need to do another if statement. I'm just going to copy this first one, but change this to course location. So first it'll say if find location has been checked, then good. Then it'll check if course location has been checked, then good. And then inside here we'll set a boolean. I guess I can just make the boolean instead of doing pseudocode. So variables private boolean, we'll call it m location permission granted, and set it to false to begin. And so if this all goes through, then we'll set that to true, and that will mean that our permissions are all set. So kind of else we need to ask for those permissions. So we need to do activity compat dot request permission, and we need to pass the context and then our permissions, which we've defined above, and then a request code. So this doesn't really actually matter. I'm just going to put a 1 here for the, actually let's do 1 2 3 4, and I'll create it in a global just to keep things nice. So private static final integer, we'll call it location permission request code. Call it 1 2 3 4, because we actually are going to be receiving a result. So that's it for the get location permission method. Now we need to, like I just said, we're going to be looking for a request permission result. So we can insert an override method here. So go Control O and look for on request permission result. It's right there. And I think we can get rid of the super. We don't need that. And so here we want to do permission granted, do false. So we assume that it's false to begin with. Then we're going to do a switch statement and check the request code. Check the request code. And then the first case is that location permission code that we just created right there. So if the request code is the location permission one, then we can say if our grant results, if grant results.length is greater than 0, that means something was granted, that some kind of permission was granted. And we also want to check if grant results 0, which would be the first position of the array of the results, equals package manager permission granted. So if that first permission was granted, then we know that's good, and we can say m location permissions granted equals to true, and then we want to initialize our map. So initialize our map, because we know that our permissions are checked, everything should be good, we're ready to go. Actually, now that I think about it, grant results there could be more than one, because we're actually checking more than one permission. So really what you should do is loop through your results. So let's get rid of that right there and just do like a for loop. So integer I equals 0, I is less than grant results dot length, and then I plus plus. So it'll loop through all of the grant results, and I guess so if one of the results, so if grant results I guess if it does not equal that, then what we want to do is do location permission granted equals false, and then break the loop. But if it gets through everything, actually not break the loop, we want to return. So if we return, then it won't get down to this position. But if it manages to get through the loop and they're all granted, then we can set the permission to granted and initialize our map. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so let's scroll up a little here and create another new method. We're going to go private void init map. We're going to create that initialize map method. And the way that we're going to initialize the map is, I think there's actually a code snippet, but I don't want to go back to the documentation. So we just need to create a support. Actually, I don't think it needs to be final. We just need to create a support map fragment and just call it map fragment equals support map fragment and get support fragment manager. So get support. My downer on my keyboard doesn't work, so I can't go down. Find fragment by ID, r.id, and this is going to be the name of our map, which I'm pretty sure I named map. I'm just going to make sure. Yep, it's map. So that's good. So that's going to refer to our map ID. And then we want to do map fragment dot get map async, and then we want to implement the OnMapReady Callback method. So new OnMapReady Callback, and so this will actually prepare our map. And so this is one way we could set up the map. Then after that we could create our Google Maps variable. So Google Map, we'll call it mmap. And then once the map is ready, you would do mmap equals Google Map. And then that would actually set up your map. So that's one way to do it. There's also a second way to do it. It's kind of comparable to the way you can do button clicks in Android. So like with one way of doing button clicks, if you go to main activity, you can initialize the button and then just use the button, set on click listener, and implement the interface. Alternatively, you could implement the on click listener interface and then use an override method and implement the interface that way. But so it's the same kind of thing with this. With the map, you can create the map and then get the map async and then use new OnMapReady Callback interface, or you can go up here and implement the OnMapReady Callback interface this way. Click implement methods, go OnMapReady, and then you have your override OnMapReady right here. So I can put this like up here. And this would be exactly the same thing. So you could do mmap equals Google Map. So it's kind of a little bit less code. I think I'm going to actually do it that way, like, because that way I could just I can delete all this, and all I have to do is go map activity dot this, and then everything will get set up that way. So a little bit cleaner that way. So I think I'm going to do it that way through the implementation of the interface. And so if this interface method is called, basically that means that we're ready to map. So we can just create a little toast message here and say map is ready. And that way the user knows, or we know as a developer when we're testing, that everything's working correctly in terms of the map. So let's go into onCreate here and do our check for the location permission. So just say get location permissions to kind of set everything off here, and then go down into our onRequest permission result and initialize our map if our permissions are all granted. And yeah, and if you're wondering about this Boolean, it's going to be used later. Like obviously this is not used to check anything right now, so it's going to be used for later stuff. That's why I added it. So at this point I think we can actually run the app. We don't have any logs, so maybe we should add a couple logs. So just say map is ready here. Maybe add a log here saying initializing map. This one here, getting location permissions. And let's do one last one here. So just say that was called and permission failed. And then here we can say permission granted. So permission granted. Cool. So now let's run that and see what we're dealing with. All right, so we got our map or our app open here. Let's click the. Well, I better open the log, just in case there's any errors. We can see them right away. Okay, so let's click on the map button and see what we get. So it looks like it's working, and we have our Google Maps working here. I'm gonna play with it with my fingers. Yeah, you can see you can zoom in. Everything's refreshing. Yeah, so everything looks like it's good. I didn't see that ready to map toast though, but maybe I wasn't looking. Let's click it again. And I don't see the ready to map toast. So there's definitely a problem then, because something wasn't called. Well, I can see the log for getting the permission, but if I search on request permission result, which was this our result here, this was never called, so that's our problem. This was never run. And actually, yeah, so on the screen also I never got asked these permissions, so something is wrong in this section right here. And I see the problem right here. So this else statement is inside this if statement, so that's the problem. So this has to be on both of them. So it checks this first permission, and then else it will ask the permissions, then it will get into the second permission, and if it's still not correct, then it will ask the permissions once again. So that is our issue. Let's run it again. Okay, let's open up the log again and click on map. There we go, it's asking us permission. That's perfect. So I'll hit allow, and there we go, we get the map is ready toast popping up there. So at this point everything is working as we expect. Now that we have our map working, in the next one we can work on getting my device's location, or getting your device's location in your case, and then displaying it on the map. So I'll see you guys in that next video.